Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable in the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. Excited to be here today with David G. and Nikki M. around this virtual roundtable on Zoom, in which we get to come together from all parts of the country, all parts of North America, to discuss the Big Book and different insights and takeaways that we have from it. David, why don't you just take a second and say hi to us, and then we'll go to Nikki.
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you for your service as always. Love you, Miss Nikki. Glad to be here with you today. Hey, everybody. I am David G. I'm an alcoholic and addict of many sorts, and I am definitely loved by a power greater than beyond anything I could ever imagine. I am super grateful to be at this roundtable today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Nikki, you're up.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M., and I'm a spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. And that's what my book tells me I am. And, my program comes with a book. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous, 4th edition. And I can't wait to swim through these pages with pretty much some of my favorite humans are sitting here at the table. Thank you.
And thank you, Nikki. I'm grateful to be here with some of my favorite humans, too. One of the, and I'm Justin. I'm a recovering addict of multiple varieties. And I have to say, I am a real alcoholic of the hopeless variety. Even though I'm not, alcohol isn't my drug of choice. I am an alcoholic. I suffer the disease of alcoholism. And as I accept this and embrace it and move through it, amazing things happen in my life. Today, we are going to continue reading from chapter 3, more about alcoholism. We'll be starting on the page of top of page 31, the paragraph that starts with "Despite all we can say," and we will be reading through towards the top of page 32, and we'll be kind of stopping at the end of a paragraph before that paragraph actually ends, because the next reading will be a story that starts with the last sentence of that last paragraph. So we're going to do a little bit of reading here. Jump into it, grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, a piece of paper. Let's take notes. Let's learn and see where our higher power takes us as we read. All right, here I go with the reading. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe that they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing inability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitments to asylums. We could increase the list ad infinitum. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide if you are honest with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of jitters if you get a full knowledge of your condition. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We have heard of a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of an overpowering desire to do so. And we'll stop there, even though there's one more sentence in that paragraph, because that leads right into the next story. So what we've got here is we've read a bunch of things. That log list that we talked about, I've tried all these different things, and I look forward to diving into this. David, why don't you tell us some of the takeaways and some of the insights you have in this reading?
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much, Justin, for your service. And guys, when you read this, if you're addict, it probably bores the hell out of you, to be honest with you. Drinking here, drinking there, But man, if we dig inside of this and look underneath what is written here in the black, there is a powerful message to be had. Self is a liar. It is a liar. It will deceive us. It will bullshit us. It will talk us into the craziest shit, telling us it's everybody else's fault. And it'll tell me I'm spiritually sick. Well, the book says that, don't it? Yeah, it does. But it tells me it's because of a human condition called self, if you read it closely. This gives me one of the best outlines of looking at the physical and the mental, but nothing spiritual. Our book doesn't talk about that. I don't care what you say. If you can show it to me, I'll shut up. But until then, I'm going to keep on. Here we go. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, that's those of us who have no choice, who have lost the choice, are not going to, and here's our key word, believe that I'm in that class. See, it comes back to beliefs over and over and over. We're never going to get away from this. I don't care. We're just not. By every form of, here's what happens first. Self-deception. Self begins to deceive me. I fall into the deception of self. Look at what happens then. I experiment over and over and over. I'm going to go out and try to prove myself exceptions to the rule, not only with drinking, but that my experiments work and yours doesn't. And I'm back here in AA to tell you why. I remember a guy come into our group one time and he said, y'all keep saying, keep coming back. You know, it gets better. He said, I'm here to tell you that it's better out there than it is here. And I said, then what the hell are you doing here? Why aren't you out there? And he was stumped. He didn't know what to say. He was being deceived by self. And I've been there many times. I can relate with him. Therefore, anyone who is showing inability, see, I'm unable to control drinking, thinking, whatever you want to call it, can do the right about face, turn around, do something different. The book says, hell, we urge you to do that. I mean, if that's your story, get after it. Let me know how that works out. But here is where it shows me this has nothing to do with spirit. Look at what he says. Drinking beer only, that's physical. Limiting the number of drinks, that's mental. Never drinking alone, that's a mental decision. Never drinking in the home, that's mental. Drinking only at home, that's physical. Never having it in the house, that's mental. Never drinking during business hours, that's a mental choice. Drinking only at parties, that's physical. Switching from scotch to brandy, that's a mental and physical. Only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, that's mental. Taking a trip, not taking a trip, mental. Swearing off forever, mental. With or without a solemn oath. Taking more physical exercise, physical. Reading inspirational books, that's mental. Going to health farms, sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums, that's all mental. It's mental and physical. I don't see anything about the spirit there. See, the spirit didn't lead me to do any of that. You see resentment and shame and remorse and deception and false beliefs and bad ideas. Those are not fruits of the spirit. You can't tell me and convince me anymore that my spirit is sick and I need to do something to get that better. If my spirit's sick, I'm screwed, and so are you, because the spirit comes from God. Our book is very, very clear about the spirit of a universe, underlying the totality of things, and much healing come from that. So if that's sick, and I was just so confused about this. I kept working the steps thinking, well, the spirit gets better. It'll tell the mind what to do and the mind will tell the body what to do. No, that's not what our book is saying at all. And you don't have to agree with this. If you and your sponsor come up with something different, get after it. That's what I say. We ain't going to pronounce anybody alcoholic. It says you can quickly diagnose. That word means identify yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room, or if you're a sex addict, step over to the nearest bathroom and try some controlled drinking or acting out or whatever it may be. Try that, and then try to stop abruptly. There's that mental choice again. Try that. And it's not going to take long for us to decide if we're honest. And I think that's the key, if we are honest with ourselves about it. So this is very powerful. Gosh, there is some great examples of this coming up in the next session. I'm so excited to dive into this and look at how these men were sober for long periods of time, and how the mind, the belief, the lurking notion, the peculiar mental twist, all of these things come back and begin to convince that it would be okay for them to do this one more time. So we're talking about the insanity that precedes here. Once we recover from that, hell, you don't have to worry about drinking no more. I haven't drank for almost 30 years, thank God. That's not the miracle as much as I haven't wanted to drink for almost 30 years. That's the miracle. I haven't wanted to drink because I don't believe the lie. Now, I've suffered from it in other areas. Trust me, I have. But today, I'm starting to see those for what they really are. And it's just a beautiful way to live. Hell, I got to recover from the insanity that's going on in my mind here. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, David. Very, very good. The physical and mental there. I like that. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. Nikki, talk to me about some of the things that as we read and in here jumped out at you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, David. I love just listening to you and going. This is one of the things that one of my friends says. It's like when you're here, you're like, I want everyone to hear this. You just want to bring everyone to hear this message, and I'm so grateful that I'm here to be part of. So, what do I have really here? I have no choice. I have no choice. Self-deception is the lie. It's a lie. See, I have that liar living inside of me that it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And I can't control anything. It says delusion, self-deception all over my book here. And I have tried. I've tried everything to be like other people. Later in our book, in To the Wives, it says, we urge you to try our program. See, I have to be reprogrammed. I did not think this way in year 1, year 2, even year 8. I'm now in year 12 of being in these rooms, and I'm realizing how deep this runs. I mean, I have tried very hard to be like other people, to not be who I am, which is Nikki M. There's only one Nikki M. I said today to the person I was speaking to earlier, I said, imagine we're all, God's deep down inside of us. So God is trying to experience life through my eyes. Then God's trying to experience life through your eyes, through what it's like to be that person. We're all having a different experience with this power. And then when it says, I will try to prove that I'm the exception. Why do I keep trying to prove that? Because my addict life is my only normal one. We read that in the doctor's opinion. My programming is in every cell of my body. I have to reprogram this energy. This is not easy. Remember, we read this is simple, but it's not easy. And a price has to be paid. We talked about that, which is the destruction of this self. So when they talk about these methods, I mean, David went through it so great. I've tried all of these. I know you have too, Justin. It's like my line out, I'm beyond human aid. My experience with that, it's like, oh, we're just going to be lovers. You stay married and I'll stay married. You know where that goes. We're just going to be secret lovers. No, this is not karaoke, people. This is my ideas, my conceptions, and no one's going to know about it until I lose my mind because you're ignoring me. Oh, we work together. You know where that goes. This is not a fifth step. So we've all been here doing this. And I love the reading inspirational books. Moms, are you out there? Have you read I'm 50. Were you part of Oprah's network for many years? I mean, there's nothing out there that's going to help me. And I love that. Increase the list. Justin and I have a list that goes, on my list, it says the big book's not going to help. See, this book is going to get me to the power, but one day when got my back against the wall, what am I going to, I have to have power. I have to have tapped into this power because I increased my list and my sponsor's on it because my sponsor has a life, everybody. And when I'm losing my mind, he's not going to answer or she's not going to answer because you get a life here. So I increased the list, which says even my big book is not going to help. That's why this has to become a working part of my mind. And we do not like to pronounce any individual an alcoholic. This is a life instruction book. I don't pronounce anything to anybody anymore because I'm busy saying, well, you know what you are. I've learned in the meetings and in the rooms to speak from I statements. I learned that in Al-Anon. Never say, well, you should. We speak from I statements. This is what worked for me. Not, you should do this. So you can practice these principles in all your affairs. So everybody, if you have my little side note out here says, never speak in you are, speak in I am statements so people can diagnose themselves. Because later in the book, we're going to read that the inventory is mine, not the other person's. And I get my back up when people start telling me how I am. Now over here, I love it, page 32. The thing I have highlighted here, you honest with self. This is about radical honesty. Remember on our last episode, we said we had to fully concede, admit to our innermost self. This is about radically getting honest with yourself. Because I'm very disciplined, but I'm not disciplined with my emotions. I'm not disciplined with my beliefs, my ideas, as David is really opening my eyes to this. This is all about, it's all in my mind. I knew that, but it goes so deep. And so I'll end here and we'll get to it. Because what's coming up, this whole book is so exciting. I never want to leave the round table. I'm weird. Just want to stay here with you guys. But David's got plans today. And so here it says, but the difficulty is that few alcoholics, addicts have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. See, everyone's like, "Wow, I'm going to be here forever." Well, I hope everybody knows. I mean, time is just a construct, but as I get to 50, wow, it goes by quick. So if you're listening and you're young, don't think you got a lot of time here. Like, get in here and do this work. We urge you to be fearless from the start. We beg you to be fearless from the start. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Good stuff, guys. Man, we've got some really good things. And a couple of questions that I have for you. David, that paragraph that we read, some of the methods we've tried, we go through all of these things. You listed out physical, mental, and you said, I don't see much in spiritual there. And this is my looking at that. I'm like, okay, how does with or without a solemn oath, where does that fall in? Mental, physical, spiritual? And talk to us a little bit about that and maybe your experience with and without a solemn oath, laying off and setting aside these things.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Great question. The solemn oaths that I take are based on self. It's based on a belief that I have at the time. And I really, really mean that with all my heart. But I haven't done that by praying and saying, God, would you please show me what's going on here? I just make a decision and run with it. And for me, that's a solemn oath. So I can swear off with or without it. It usually doesn't work. And that's what the book's telling me. Hell, it isn't going to work because you're doing it from self-perspective. And my sponsor, he used to call it being less than whole. And I really like that. He said, David, if I have a pie, you come along and I give you a piece and somebody else comes along and I give them a piece and I give away most of my pie, it doesn't mean that it's all gone. It just means it's not all there. And he said, that's kind of how it is with you and me. So insanity doesn't mean that you're gone. It just means that you're not all there. You're less than whole. And so we're not crazy. We just suffer from insanity. And that's the definition, less than whole. So, if I take a solemn oath based on a less than whole experience, I'm going to get a less than whole reaction or outcome experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's why, and I think I said this in the last episode or one of them, this is why I read the book with people. It's not because I don't think they can read. They're not smart enough to understand what's going on. At this point, we are still very much suffering from a mind that is asleep, even though we have no chemicals in it. We begin to sober up. We just haven't begun to wake up. And so there's a big difference in those two. And we can talk about that more at a later time. But this is it's so powerful. If we read behind the lines, we can see the thinking is what has driven us all of our life. And we've been conditioned from the time that we were little all the way until now with all of these personas and all of these things. Like I used to get beat daily whenever I was little and abused in many ways. And one day I killed a man. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. I guess I did, but I really didn't. And I was scared, and my mind told me that day, nobody's ever going to abuse you ever again in your life. And so from then on, I set out to do crazy, insane shit to scare people, to keep them away from me. So all of these identities that self takes on, it takes a long time for us in here to. For years, I thought that was just because of him and what he had done. But when I look back on that, I see that the thinking that happened that day was, hey, nobody's ever going to abuse you again, so do all this crazy shit. I didn't just do all that crazy shit and then come up with that idea. I came up with that idea first and then did all that crazy shit, if that makes sense. And that's exactly what it's trying to tell us here. You suffer from something within your mind that's going to be hard for you to get over. And until you do, you're not going to recover. You might get sober. You might put some resistance between you and your disease, but you're far from recovery because you haven't attacked the true problem, which is self. So anyway, I hope I didn't talk too long. Thanks for the question, Justin.
Oh, thank you very much, David. I really appreciate the insights there. We'll go over to Nikki with a question that I have for you. And you said something that, to some big book evangelists may sound sacrilegious, that the book isn't going to save you when your back's against the wall. So what I want to get to on this is the transition of reliance from self to fellowship group to sponsor to book to that power greater than self. Talk to me about what that transition and how that looks like in your life and how you remedy it when you go back and forth between different reliances.
Wait, what do you mean, Justin? And clarify just a touch for me.
Yeah, so for me, and I'll share my thoughts on this. When I first came into the rooms, I was fully reliant on self. I thought I had to be the solution. And then I get into a room and I realize, oh, there's a fellowship here that I can also rely on as that source of strength, of power. I get a sponsor. I can rely on my sponsor on that. And maybe the book becomes part of that and then move on to power. Talk to me about that transition of reliance on from self to away from self. Yes.
Okay, so the process. But I think in America, they say the process. Okay, so here we go. I don't care, potato. What happens is I'm going to die and I come into these rooms because I'm beyond human aid, right? So what do? I get a sponsor because I'm kind of towing the line. I'm following what you guys are doing because whether we're in the rooms or whether we're like in school or we're at the office or whether we're just in society, we follow like sheep. We follow. So we come into these rooms and we start to follow like sheep. I get a sponsor. Hopefully I'm in a decent room that has a big book, all these things. And then the process starts, of course, you have to sponsor. You have to sponsor. So in sponsoring, like I tell people, hey, what's your profession? Oh, you're a hairdresser. How was your first haircut? Oh, it wasn't good, was it? But now, 10 years later, 20 years later, you cut like Edward Scissorhand, you're blindfolded and you do this beautiful coif. That's what's happened to me here, is that I come in here and first day, I'm not good. I'm not good at sponsoring, but I stay. That's our big thing from Justin that you and I have really gotten from David is like, stay, don't leave the rooms. So I stay here. And then what happens is that then again, the promises are real. Page 87, this promise, what used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of my mind. It becomes, because I've been programmed. Remember, I come in here, I've been programmed by society, my parents, right down to the color of my skin. I get programmed by the world. And then I have to come in here and I have to sweep away. Remember, we're asked to sweep away all those prejudice. That takes time. This is time. And then I come in here. So the process is a slow process. You're turning around a Titanic ship. Like, think about that. Like, this is, that's why they say every day is a day we do this work. So I come in. And so why doesn't the book, why doesn't the sponsor, why is every human aid on this list? I increased my list that we talked about on page 31 because all of it will fail me. So I have to stay here, have this book become a working part of my mind so it becomes a second nature. Does that make sense to you? And then what happens is that I go deeper. Why? Let's go real deep. I entered a spirit world. And as David said, many people in the rooms are still asleep. I had a guy the other day say, Nikki, you're not welcome in Cocaine Anonymous because that's not really your thing. And I snort men and money, but he sees something sinful about my lifestyle because I'm not a real alcoholic. That's fine. But I have to carry this message. I entered a spirit world. And this message says that all are welcome, that this will gradually become a working part of my mind, and that I need to carry this message to all who suffer the disease of alcoholism. So this is really radical. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of people, not only do they say, oh, you say the book doesn't work, Nikki. You shouldn't be in this room, Nikki. And I'm going to say, according to my big book that has become a working part of my mind, I've entered a spirit world. I've tapped a source of power, and I am to carry this message in all my affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, David, actually, takeaway. Yeah, David, what's the takeaway from this conversation and this reading that you have?
Well, hell, I thought it was process, not process. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Nikki, for your share. I love you, girl. I think it would be there on 32, that last full sentence. It may be worth a bad case of the jitters to get a full knowledge of your condition. I read a book that says the blueness of the wound is the healing of the sins. And to get your ass kicked and begin to heal up from some blue and black bruises in this deal may be worth it may be worth it to get a full knowledge of your condition. It's the same thing that's saying here. Because if I don't, then I'm never going to recover. The full knowledge of my conditions, the jitters might be a part of the experience, but that's not where I get the full knowledge of my condition. The full knowledge of my condition is in these words: lurking notion, immune, peculiar, gravely, symptoms, regulate, belief, made up his mind, diagnosed, delusion, insanity. This is the things that I have to look at in order to get a full knowledge of what my condition really is. So my condition is self. I'm driven by fear with all that shit. That's the full knowledge of my conditions. It may be worth a bad case of me getting drunk, high, or whatever it is. See, I tell guys, they come back in after what they call a relapse. And I just tell them, you know what? Don't worry about that. If you get a full knowledge of your condition here, it was completely worth every bit of that, just because we have to do this or that, or what one fellowship calls sobriety and another one calls it, that's all well and good. And that's good stuff. I'm not saying it's not, it is. But if I get beat up a little bit and get a better knowledge of my condition and therefore have a better experience here, then it was worth it to me anyway. So thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, David. I really appreciate that. Nikki, how about you? Takeaway for you.
Well, I'm crazy. I started crying as David's speaking because it's to get honest with yourself. See, we read a few pages back that we have been rocketed into an existence that Justin and David and myself could not dream of. People in the back, people in the front, people to the side listening. You can be rocketed into an existence that you have never dreamed of. Never. You just said, Justin, you need this podcast today. I need it. David has a day planned out with his friend, but he needs it too. I know. I'll speak for him. We all need this. And we got to get honest with ourselves, because this mediocre lifestyle that we've been programmed into, it's not real. We can have an existence that we have never dreamt of. Miracles they're talking here. So get with it, get honest, and get in here with us. Sit down and stay. Oh, I'm closing the meeting out. Justin, that's your job.
No, great. I love it. I love it. And we may just close out with that. But my takeaway is that the phrase that few alcoholics, few addicts have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. That's one of the, when I talk to people and even in my own life, I'm still young. I'm almost 50, but I still feel like I'm a teenager. My brain is still a teenager. I'm still in my early 20s, wanting to get out and rip and run and do all sorts of stupid stuff because there's still time. The liar in my head says there's still time. I'm going to pull in some religious verbiage here. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. There's still time, man. That's going to run me into the depths of death and insanity. The gates of death and insanity will quickly arrive. And, like what David said, maybe it's worth it to have that bad case of jitters to get that full knowledge. If I think there's still time and I've realized there's not. Anyways, that's my takeaway for today. Man, such a good conversation here. Everybody dig into this. Dive deep into self. Find that power greater than self that will relieve you of self. Keep coming back, and when you come back, stay here, because it's worth it. It is worth it to stay, and it's worth it to continue to grow, and you are worth it.